Eddie, what time do you have, buddy? That's what I've got. Okay, time to get the meeting to order at this time. For visitors, we have the Young Life, a group asking about the July 4th 5K. They've been doing this before for several years, but however, last year and maybe the year before last, they didn't do it, so they have come back to ask the board for permission. So who is the spokesperson for Young?
And he said earlier today he'd be here, but I don't see him. So I don't know if y'all want to go ahead and vote on whether you're going to allow him to have it or not again.
Anybody have any trouble with it?
So moved.
Second?
Motion carries. Okay. If that's all right with everybody, we'll just let them continue with it. It's their main fundraising. I think they raise about $8,000 or $10,000 a year, and that's on July 4th morning. So will you notify them that the board says it's okay?
No.
All right. Public comment period. No one is registered to make a public comment, so we will move on to the workshop discussion. First in our workshop, we have Rodney Borff here with schools, city school system, and we'll be connecting to Chuck Cagle to provide information to our board about the city school system. So,
I wonder if he was clicking on the other invitation. too.
Rodney, you want to?
Yeah, I'm working on getting Chuck Cagle.
Okay. You want us to go on and then come back?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In the workshop discussion in the quarterly sample meeting last week, their members requested some directional signage along Highway 68, much like the signage in downtown. Jessica, you want to comment on that?
Sure. So Joanna's actually the president of Sampo. She's at that meeting also. Feel free to jump in anything I might leave out. Basically, they want to do the same type of signage that's downtown, the black and white arrows, directional signage. In other areas of town, the first one that we had a couple business owners agree to help pay for part of the cost was out on Highway 68 at the corner of Old Athens Pike and Highway 68. I think Salt and Light had shown interest in having a directional sign pointing that way. We thought we would do one towards the high school. Also, another business on 68 had asked about having a directional signage, so if we thought we'd put one right there. Sampo has agreed to pay for the total cost of the sign. It was around $3,600, and they voted to authorize that funding, but we needed to vote as a board to allow them to place it, because that's obviously in right-of-way where it would be. But does anybody have an issue with that? It's something we can put on next Monday's meeting for a formal vote, but I was going to go ahead and order the signage unless somebody had a major objection to it.
Works for me.
Okay, great.
Okay. Now we'll have the city administrator's report. Jessica?
Okay. Rodney, this one takes a few minutes, and I know y'all are trying to get out for a funeral too, so just like wave at me if he ends up connecting, and we'll switch back to Chuck. Our charter requires a quarterly financial report, so that's included in this report among other things. Total revenues, we're at 56% to date right now, and our expenditures are at 50%, so that's looking good. This is a graph on our sales tax, a 3-year history on it. This year we've set a monthly historical record in August, September, October, November. So the last 4 months in a row have been the highest they've ever been for that particular month compared to prior years. I'm a little surprised by that because I felt like it was starting to slow down, and I keep warning y'all that sales tax is probably going to slow down a little bit, but it's still trending higher than what we expected. Our biggest month in history was last year's January report, which is purchases in December. So we'll be posting those funds next month. That graph right there in the middle, you can see how much higher January was than all the other months. And obviously that's Christmas shopping. It does tell us that people are shopping local a little bit more than they used to, that we're retaining some of that retail leakage instead of it going to other places, which is important to us and, of course, the school board and all their members here, because sales tax gets split between the local government and the school system. These are just some highlights on general fund revenue. Local option sales tax revenue is budgeted at 3.8. We've collected 1.6 so far, and that's only for 5 months because of how far behind sales tax is. So even though we're 50% through the calendar year as of December 31st, that was only 5 months worth. So we're at 56% of our anticipated revenue for the year, and we're actually a month behind that. So, I mean, we should end up doing really well in sales tax again this year. State sales tax, we're at 57% collected and 56% for current year property tax. We'll collect over $1 million in property tax in the next 3 or 4 weeks. Say a prayer for Sonia and Julie. Right now, we're up 7.7% from last December, sales taxes, and our state sales tax is up 5.2%. Here's some of your other funds, just kind of a spotlight on that. State street aid's remaining pretty steady for what we expect it to be. A lot of the budgeted revenues from State Street Aid are grant funding because obviously we're going to have that money coming in for the Hawkins-Linwood Road paving project, which is a bulk of that. We'll also have some for the multimodal grant, which we're going to talk about here in a second. Drug fund, we're always kind of shy on revenues on the front end of the year, and second half of the year is where we kind of make up for that in drug fund. That's not unusual at all. Tourism fund, that money is actually trending a little higher. We did get a mural grant, which we'll talk about here in a second. So that's part of why those revenues are a little bit higher. Sanitation fund is going much better this point this year than it was at this point last year. Once we stopped allowing people to just publicly dump at the garage and at the dump outside the city limits, that really cut that landfill expense by a lot. Like right now, I think we've cut it by about 35%. We'll know a little bit more as we get further into the year, but I think that was a good solution. And obviously we had a lot of people taking advantage of that we're not inside the city limits and we're professional contractors and all kinds of things. Right this second, we have 31 grant contracts signed and considered active grants. That totals about a little over $10 million. The mural grant that I mentioned, it's actually a private grant this time, so this is not a Tennessee Arts Commission grant, which is who's funded our other mural grants. This is through East Tennessee Foundation, so it's a private grant for $9,000. We're going to use that to do the 150th mural. The high school students are going to be helping select the designs that go into that, and we've got a meeting on that next week. So you'll see that up on the wall. That's where 3 Generations Art Studio is on Miller Street. So that's a nice big brick wall that's going to have a new mural on it, and that's going to commemorate the 150 years of Sweetwater this year. We also received 2 grants since the last quarterly update on the community center building downtown. The Connected Community Award is $609,000 and change, and the CDBG grant is a little over $1.1 million. Both of those are for the community center. They're both paying for different segments of the community center. And bless our architect's heart for having to work around all those things and with the deadlines that are required of those. And Main Street Studios is putting a lot of work in on that right now. Also, Hawkins and Linwood paving, those bids have been approved. You all voted last meeting to go ahead and execute contracts on that. So we do think that that road will finally be paved here this spring, and we're very happy to see that project done and marked off the list. This is our debt summary. General fund has about $1.6 million in debt, so we have very low debt right now. Our education debt is 3.7, and SUB's debt is around 12.6. So all of that's very reasonable for a city our size. It's probably a little on the low side, which is kind of good because we're probably about to issue more debt for the community center. These are a couple of items I just wanted to review with you, not necessarily part of the financial report, but just updates. We had an incident command meeting on December 4th with all the departments present and all the department heads. John and Eddie headed that up. One thing that came out of that meeting, and I think Commissioner Stutz was there also, we decided we needed to update our job descriptions. So I had a meeting with Betsy Cunningham last week from MTAS, and she's going to help us work on that. One of the things we think every single job description in the city needs to specifically say, and this is kind of a legal thing, the tort liability law provides protection for employees as long as they're operating within their job description. Well, what if you're called on in an emergency to do something, a street department guy needs to go do purchasing, or something that's not typically in your job description? We wanted to make it very clear that that was still included in the job description if they're authorized by someone who isn't their department head, like a police chief or a fire chief or a city administrator or somebody who needs them to do something in the event of an emergency, that they would be able to do that and have the protection that the tort liability law allows for local employees. So we're going to update those job descriptions. We also ordered a few more supplies for the EOC. Some of that was technology type stuff that Landon Purdy recommended, so we did a little bit of ordering on that. And we also talked about the need for a new entry team at Sweetwater Police Department. Eddie can kind of expand on this if he wants to, but in order to do that, it's not actually really going to cost the city anything that we don't already have budgeted for. The issue is we need to increase the comp time threshold for the 7 or 8 officers that are going to be on that entry team, because the first year of training is around 50 hours of training. So in order to get them trained and done, we need to be able to give them a little bit more comp time. We don't want to pay overtime for this. We don't want it to cost overtime, but we'd like to raise that comp time threshold temporarily for the officers that are being trained on the entry team. Eddie, do you have anything else you want to say about that?
More like 80 hours, but again, it's gonna all be comp time and it'll kind of be like you said, just you explained it, it'll be like for our SRO programs they do. But this will allow us to get our officers up to that training level, and then after that, we should be able to incorporate that into the regular training for those 7 officers to be on that select team.
Do you want to talk at all about what an entry team does for those who don't know?
Entry team basically is just, they'd have to take a training in handling the ballistic shields. They would have to take training and of course, active shooters more so. And they'll be the ones that will execute all of our high search warrants, if we got a barricaded suspect or something like that. We still have an agreement, the police department has an agreement with Blount County to use their SWAT team, if we have a major incident. But this allow us to just have that more so, to provide more security for our officers and stuff like that, and be able to provide a better service for the community.
So I just want to mention that today so y'all would kind of know what it was, but we're going to put it on the agenda for next Monday to actually take action on allowing that threshold to increase. Joanna?
Is there a reason why the threshold can't just go to 80 and stay there for all departments?
It can, if you all think that's necessary. Right now, the handbook limits it to 48 hours, and we just picked 48 hours 15 years ago when we set that rule because that's 2 fire department shifts. I think probably every department head in here would be thrilled if you raised it to 80 hours because most of the time they're getting close to that 48-hour threshold all the time. Every time you have turnover and you're having to pull someone in to work another shift or someone's out on vacation, we just have, and that's, could we use more employees in every department? Probably, but if we can manage it with comp time in the interim. So if we are going to change it in the handbook, we have to have a public hearing that's advertised. So we would not be able to do that next Monday. So we'd have to have more time to be able to do that public notice and have a public hearing on the handbook amendment. But if you all are interested in changing that to an 80-hour threshold across the board, we can work towards that and maybe talk about that in the February workshop. Does that seem more like how we're leaning? Okay, so what I'll do is put that comp time change in the form of a resolution and plan on a public hearing in the March meeting, and we'll add that to the February workshop to discuss it more. Is that good with you? Okay, we have another incident command tabletop meeting on February 12th where we're actually going to have some scenarios that we draw from and act out those scenarios and talk about how we would respond and what each department's role would be. And just as an example, a couple years ago we had tourniquet training for all of our employees so that if the street department is there and there's a mass shooting event, that they can help by giving tourniquets to people. They don't have to have any kind of medical qualification or certification for that, and they have the ability to do that now. So that's kind of some of the things that we'll talk through at that tabletop meeting. February 12th, 9 a.m. here in this building, and if any of you all want to attend that, you're of course more than welcome to come. We do have a property tax sale slated for 2013 to 2020. It will be on February 26th. We have a few small properties in that. This is not going to be a huge amount of money into the city or anything, because TMG is not on that property tax sale, and I will defer to John Cleveland to talk about anything related to that if anybody has questions on that. But so regular property tax sale will be February 26th.
We don't know anything yet on the TMI sale.
Swan Freed removed the case to federal court. And on Thursday of last week, I filed a motion to remand to the state court, citing at least 6 very sound, strong reasons it doesn't belong in federal court, and I expect it to be back down in state court within a couple of weeks. And once that happens, we should be within maybe 60 days of actually having a sale.
But
Good deal.
Maybe.
we're not going to hold up the regular tax sale to deal with her
We can get a
stuff.
hold of Trump, he'll get it moving.
So, next thing on the agenda is multimodal design, and this is something we'll have to put on Monday's agenda for actual action. but I wanted you all to see what the design was gonna be. This is the sidewalk grant that runs from right here in front of People's Bank down to about where Farmer's Furniture is. We would have to get construction easements only from 5 businesses, so we're not acquiring their property permanently. We're only doing a construction easement. We offer, each business has their own ingress and egress. John Cleveland has talked to each one of those business owners, so they are aware that this is coming. We did change the parking spaces in front of A&S Towing. I know DJ had come in a few meetings ago concerned about that. We made it to where it's going to be a flat entrance, so he can still keep all that parking there. And from this point forward, this is the most important part. Since we will be acquiring right-of-way, even if it's only temporary construction easements, we as a board, as a governing board, we as representatives of the city, any city employees are no longer allowed to speak to any of those property owners about the easement. You can't talk to them about the sidewalk. If they have questions about anything, we probably should just refer them to John Cleveland for now, but we're not allowed to talk to them about acquiring those easements because there's a very extensive process that TDOT will go through that we will have a consultant do for us where they go back and forth and they document every time they talk to this person and they get their signatures and they offer the fair compensation that they get for their easement. We are not allowed to talk to them about that or we could jeopardize that right-of-way process.
Does that mean the board too, because we're not considered city employees?
It most especially means you, me, and the city board. None of us can talk to any of those property owners about their easement. We have to let TDOT do the talking to them from now on, from this point forward. So if they have questions, refer them to John Cleveland and we'll get them to the right person to answer their question. But we're not allowed to negotiate price or tell them, oh, I don't think it'll cost you much, or we're not allowed to have any kind of conversation at all about that.
Do you have any time limit on this, like actual start time?
Construction will probably not start until spring of next year. So it'll probably be a full year from now. And if they ask questions about timeline, that's okay for you to have a conversation about. You just cannot talk about acquiring their land at all.
What about the bridge? How far, the last, I saw on the report, that bridge is not even
I can't hear a
close to
thing.
considered yet, either one of the bridges.
Do I hear Chuck Cagle on there now? Okay. Okay, let's pause. Do you want to talk to him now?
I can't hear either. I think everybody else is muted.
Okay, let's unmute ourselves.
Can you hear
Chuck,
us?
you ready? Yes, now I can.
All right, we're good to go.
Thank you. I thought something was wrong there. It's I was getting a good view, but I couldn't hear anything.
Hey Chuck, Mayor Lowe here. How you doing?
Doyle, Mr. Mayor, I have agreed to attend this meeting under one condition, and that is that you don't tell everything you know about me.
I'll keep that a secret.
For those of you who don't know, Doyle Lowe was my training union teacher at North Sweetwater Baptist Church too many years ago for us to talk about. So it's mighty good to see you folks again.
Well, it's good to see you, even though it's long distance. Good to see you. How do we want to start this? Do we want to open up with some comments from Rodney to open the bases up and then turn it over to you, or do you want to start it out and we'll turn it over to Rodney? Is this going to be a question and answer session too?
Probably what we can, but I was basically going to leave it to Chuck to explain, the legal side of it, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. All right. So start it out, Chuck, and then we'll turn it over to Rodney to close it out with.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Members of the council, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Chuck Cagle. I'm a native of Sweetwater, Tennessee. When everybody looks at my resume, I say that's the most important line on there. I've been misplaced in Nashville now for about 36 or 37 years. I manage the education law practice group at Lewis Thomason law firm, and has offices in Nashville, Knoxville, and Memphis. And we represent about 75 school districts in the state. And on top of that, I represent 5 private colleges and a private medical school for a living. Education law is what we do in this group. The firm has over 100 lawyers that do lots of other things, but that's the role I play. I get the privilege of working with folks like Rodney Boroff and 147 other school superintendents in the state on literally an hourly basis. So it's a good thing for me. by way of background, I have managed the consolidation of schools, the smallest of which was the Covington City Schools into the Tipton County Schools several years ago, to Harriman into the Harriman School District into Roane County. The largest consolidation we managed was the Shelby County School, the Memphis City Schools, when they consolidated into the Shelby County school system. That was about 114 or 115,000 student system that we merged into a 50,000 student school district. The consolidation of schools, or consolidation of a school, the assumption of operation of a school, in this case is not much different from consolidation of schools. You have all kinds of things with which to be concerned. Not the least of those is students. That's our first and foremost objective, is to make sure that any transfer that takes place is as seamless for the students as is possible. The second is for, of course, the faculty and staff. And there are rights that attach to the transfer of faculty and staff from one district to another, dealing with everything from salary and benefits to tenure. So we have to manage that, and then we move on from there to physical facilities and operations, making sure that the buildings are something that we want to assume. Number one, number two, making sure that they're in good shape, putting out a good forecast on the condition of the entire physical plant of the school system, or the school in this case, and making sure that we're very candid with things that we may have to do in the near future. And I know of the age of Sweetwater High School, having graduated from there in 1974, so I know of the age of the building there, and I know that old buildings can be time-consuming and can be costly in some cases to operate. Although I think that one's in pretty good shape. First and foremost is for us, when we start talking about this, always is money, and I'm not going to avoid that when we move into consolidation of systems. We wonder how much more, how much less is this going to be a break-even proposition. And at this stage of it, we know what we know, and know what we can figure out based on what kind of students we have over there, because the education funding formula is student-driven these days. Depending on what students you have, what grades they're in, what programs they're in, whether they're special education, whether they are taking a mass of career technical education courses, whether they're free or reduced lunch, their economic situation, a lot of that is known to us. So once we get students, we generally know how the funding formula is going to work after that. Generally, personnel in any consolidation like this, personnel is about between 72 and 80% of the transfer cost. It's that way in every school district budget. Anywhere from 72 to 80% of a school system's budget is entailed in personnel. The rest of it's operations, such things as computers, textbooks, technology of all sorts. School food service falls outside that because it's an enterprise account, and in a very well operated system, school food service, along with collections and federal appropriations, pays for itself. And then beyond that, the thing that we have to be concerned about is the operations of the physical plant itself. How much does it cost to operate those two buildings and the grounds that surround them? So that's where we operate. When the students transfer, the teachers will transfer. We will certainly need teachers to teach the children, and as I said, the teachers have rights under the statute that we are required to honor in a transfer situation or a transfer of operation situation. So we will get most, if not all, of those teachers who wish to transfer from one school system to another. We'll get those folks. It's their decision on whether or not to transfer, but we certainly have to offer them positions. Beyond that, then we take basically a snapshot in time, figure out where the students are, try to place them, and begin operation. as far as textbooks and technology goes, most of that's in place. I would say that both school systems are operating on the same student information system, so that's not hard to manage. So that's where we are. We'll get the grades. We'll transfer the records. We'll do everything else beyond that. So those are the major issues. And I understand Sweetwater City has started a transportation system. That's a below the line. When we talk about, by the way, we talk about above the line and below the line costs. Above the line is everything it takes to teach children. Personnel, textbooks, technology, teacher assistants, all those costs are above the line. Below the line, we still use that terminology. That's the operation. That's physical plant operation, and all of that it includes transportation. All that's below the line. So those two things are kept separate intentionally so that we can cost them out. Again, the school funding system has changed in Tennessee. The funding system now is student driven rather than cost driven, cost center driven. It's student driven. And again, as soon as we know what the students that are there, what categories they fall in, what additional factors figure into the funding scheme based on that student's placement, then we'll know a bit more about the funding. Let me slow down just a minute and see if you have questions at this point.
Well, you mentioned on several things there. What about retirement? How is the retirement factor if this, were to happen? How would the retirement factor work? I understand there's some differences in retirement from Sweetwater High School and junior high. Would the same retirement hold for Sweetwater High School teachers now as before? I mean, is it everything would be in place?
Yes, there are two different, the Sweetwater City schools and Monroe County schools, unless I'm mistaken, are both members of the Tennessee Consolidated Retirement System. And depending on when they joined the retirement system is basically the only difference that I'm aware of that exists. If you're under the old retirement system, basically the school system contributed 5% of the retirement. That would not change under the old system. Under the new system, it's more like a 401k system. There's some differences, some basic differences to it, but it's more like a 401k system. So those are the only differences that exist. But everybody's a member of the same retirement system. It's just that members have been placed differently depending on how long they've actually been vested in the system.
And the years of service would fall into place too, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. How about it, kids?
I have a question. For the example, am I on?
Is it on?
Okay, I think I'm on. For the items below the line, you said transportation. You said anything that doesn't have to do with the actual education of the children. So that would include like sports and clubs and the cafeteria. And can you give me just some more instances of what actually falls below the line?
Maintenance of the school plant and all the departments that go there. Upkeep, capital, any bonded indebtedness that may exist. And some school districts do carry bonded indebtedness. Sports to the extent that you fund sporting activities. Some of those sporting activities are self-supporting. I'm not familiar enough with the budget of Sweetwater High School, although I've looked at it. I'm not familiar enough to know that I can say how much money the county's actually funding beyond coaches' salaries. And coaches' salaries are an above the line expenditure. So it is. So that's the salaries themselves. Now the supplements are also salaries. So that's an above the line expenditure. Beyond that, equipment and things like that. Also, what transfers, and I have a list from their last audit. I've looked at a list from their last audit at Sweetwater High School of all the club accounts, school accounts, and school books. And all that funding will also transfer. So if the quarterback club or the football club has, and I'm just going to pull a figure out of the air that please understand it's made up, but if they've got $5,000 in their account, that will transfer with the transfer of the school itself.
And why do you keep it separate? Because you can't look at one or the other and think that that's how much the school costs.
It's based on appropriation. The state, such things as extracurricular activities and things like that. There's literally no state appropriation for that. That's the only reason we keep them separate in our descriptions, because even though they're necessary for the operation of the school, there's no state appropriation for stuff like that. So that's the reason why we keep them separate. Plus the fact that if money is in a below the line expenditure, transferring that money from say capital outlay or operations up to salaries is a very questionable activity. So we keep them separate for that reason. Once that money's moved above the line into personnel, it's expected to stay there.
Just as a heads up, Rodney's telling me we have less than 10 minutes left on this Zoom meeting, so I do have an unlimited account if we need to switch over to my account and resend the link, but does anybody else have, one question I had that I had heard was, if the county had grant funding for certain programming at Sweetwater High School, would that grant funding be able to be transferred to the city, or is that something the county would then get to reallocate that money and they would not get to continue those grant programs at the high school? That's one of the things I had heard asked.
Yes. We would literally have to read every grant application and see what the application of the funds has been. If some of that funding, if they have represented that money is going to be used at high schools and with the permission of the grantor, see that would be a very important factor. With the permission of the grantor, then we would take a look to see if those funds would stay with Sweetwater High School. It's not unusual in a situation like this that would happen. In Memphis, Shelby County, we had tons of that. I mean, literally millions of dollars of grant funding that the grantor allowed to be switched to Shelby County from Memphis City Schools when they went out of business.
Great, thank you. And then the maintenance of effort that the city would be required to come up with for the difference in students. I know you said a lot of factors.
Yes.
Any idea how we can get those numbers or find out what that amount would be? There's been rumors that it would have to increase our taxes by 3 times the amount, and I mean, my calculation comes to around 300,000, I think, for a maintenance of effort increase on 600 students. So I don't know if I'm way off or if there's a way that we can get a concrete number on that.
I think with some figuring, we could do that. We're going to have to get a student count and see what every student is generating. And again, maintenance of effort would go up some. I don't know that it goes up, that it would go up dollar for dollar. I don't think there's a dollar for dollar match, but it would go up some just because you're assuming several employees, you're assuming several students, and there's money that has to go in that beyond state and federal appropriations. So once we get a listing of the students and where they fall on the funding scheme, also with the factors that apply, you understand, you know that a special education student is going to draw more funds than a regular education student, and when that special education student graduates, then that money disappears, or those factors may disappear. So once we get a snapshot in time of where the students are and what kind of money they're pulling in on a student by student basis, then we would have a good opportunity to tell you where your maintenance of effort, how it's going to go up, and a lot of that, again, a lot of what you're going to get, both through state and federal funding, is going to cover this. There will be some need for local funding, but I would say the lion's share of this is going to be covered by state and federal funding because it's where the students are. It's pulled down with student count.
Hey, Chuck, currently, what is the advantage do you see for Sweetwater City to take over the Sweetwater High School? Are there any advantage at all?
I think it's for continuity of instructional quality, number one. I think that's always where we have to go. And that's, we look at the continuity of the student as they go through the Sweetwater City school system, which is nothing short of outstanding. And when they get to the high school, then we have the opportunity to take over that school, and it's the continuity of educational quality for those students, number one. Number two, it's just difficult sometimes, particularly in special education, when you transfer students from one school district to another, and that school district doesn't maybe offer some of the programs that we've offered in special education or to special needs children that we've had. And I represent several city districts and special school districts where they only go K through 8, and then 9 through 12 is someplace else under a whole different administration. So there, it offers that continuity of services to those students. There's no disruption to teachers, basically, and so the net gain there is we gain good quality instruction from those teachers, and there's no differential there. But I think for just services, and I'm going to be personal here, folks, because this is personal to me. There is something to be said for identity. I am proud to be a product of the Sweetwater City Schools, and I would be proud to say that high school is finally where it belongs.
Anything else?
Not at this time.
Okay.
You got a question?
No, at this time.
You will be available for more questions, I'm sure.
Mr. Mayor, I'm available to Rodney Boroff, who I'm speed dial 2 on his phone. Well, speed dial 3 behind his wife and his mother-in-law, both of whom I know. But I'm speed dial 3. I'll be available. I'm going to be in Sweetwater more now because of this issue. Let me disclose that I have talked to the officials of Monroe County Schools to see if this is a possibility on their part. They have informed me that they are interested in this transfer. They're not advocating for it. They're not saying anything against it. They're interested in entering into these discussions. And I talked to the superintendent today, who assured me that we would get their full and complete cooperation on any information that was needed for you to make a decision.
Okay. Thank you, Chuck. I think
Mr. Mayor, members of council, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you a lot for the privilege of at least being in Sweetwater via video this afternoon.
All right.
Thanks.
Rodney,
Thank you, Chuck.
thank you, Chuck.
Sure.
Do you have anything to add or any questions or anything like that to you?
No, I mean, the thing that I like about the possibility of this happening is, when I was teaching, when I was a teacher at Sweetwater High School, it felt really like it was, Weaver and I, when I came to city schools and Coach Weaver was at the high school, we wanted to, whether it was two separate districts or not, we wanted this to be a feeling of one district. And so we said, we made a pact with each other that the only thing that separates us is that fence. And so everything I did from the standpoint of director of schools was geared toward trying to make his students successful. Therefore, he replicated the same thing to me when the kids got there. We recognized the Sweetwater City School System. So the only thing now that really needs to happen is we just need to make it official that we are one district. Because I feel like the majority of our folks treat it as such. And will there be questions and concerns? Obviously, yes. I mean, we take over an additional 660 students. I was thinking the other day when I was making the decision about closing school, we chose to go on a day that I probably would not go if I had high school kids driving. And so I think that's those types of things really come into effect. But I think it's been one of those things since I went through Sweetwater City Schools, graduated Sweetwater High School. It's why is Sweetwater not in our district? Why are we not in the county? I don't know. But I think we're at the point where I think people are ready to move forward and just at least get an idea of if it could possibly happen or we need to move on.
Do you think how, and I've talked to several people and they've talked to me, I've had several phone calls on it about this, kind of words got out. Don't you think a fair way of doing this is have a referendum on whether to take Sweetwater High School into the city school system? It involves taxpayers' money. And believe me, our taxes will go up. There's no question about that. How are you going to, have you got the money to purchase Sweetwater High School in the account? If they were to say, we're going to buy it, have you got the money? Have we got the money without borrowing it to pay for it?
I guess the answer to that question, we don't know what that number is.
I thought they gave you a quote on it.
I've not heard anything as far as the numbers from the hospital.
I thought there's a quote.
I thought Lamar's joking about my non-questions. I think there's so much more yet to talk about and so much more yet to discover and find out. I mean, we are barely looking at the tip of the iceberg for, can y'all hear me back there? I think we're barely looking at the tip of the iceberg of the details that it's going to take. I think at the end of all this, whether it's $1 million or whether it's 12 million, obviously, whether it's 112 million, we don't know.
Right.
But I think everybody in this room is willing to take that journey to set up the continuation of services, aka to collectively within our school system take care of every child that is in the city. But as far as will taxes go up, will they not go up, I don't think we're to that point yet. I just think a lot of the conversation is what's the benefit, and is that benefit worth the cost, or is that benefit at least trying to create a plan to make it happen? The unfortunate is I think there's more questions at this point than answers, but I think from the show of this room, everyone's interested in taking care of our own at the end of the day.
Can you?
I think probably what's happening with this particular meeting is this thing is going to develop in stages. For many years, when I was a student here, when I became a teacher at Sweetwater High School, when I was a director or a teacher or principal at the city schools, there's always been a question: why is it? What do we do to get them in the system? So I think what we're doing at this point is we're taking steps toward looking at that, and at some point there may be a stop sign. But until we reach that stop sign, I say we keep taking steps forward and see what happens.
All right. Well, I'm sure this won't be the last meeting, and maybe we can, when you can get the information together, such as the price, how we're going to pay for it, things like that, maybe we can have a town meeting. Since it involves the city of Sweetwater, I think a town meeting would be question and answer session, and we'll go from there. Is that fair with you? Is that?
But based on the question you ask, Chuck would be the perfect person to answer that question.
Yeah.
Whether
I'm
a
sure he'll
referendum
be here.
is required, but obviously you may talk to him. If he's number 3, you may talk to him before we do, and it would be a very good question to find out right off the bat.
Well, Chuck's already expressed his opinion. So that's a good idea.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, school boards, both school boards. Anything else that anybody got to add to this or take away from it? Any comment from anybody? I'll take it. Okay.
Board member,
If-
I think it's, I've expressed this in other meetings, and try not to cross any lines here because I'm also a city employee, but as to look out for their best interest, and I hear this a lot, you know. Nothing against, the high school or against Monroe County School, very good system, but I always get that question, that consistency that Chuck was talking about. Why is this not in the Sweetwater City school system? Why are all of our other schools city and the high school county? And my answer for that question for 10 years now, since I've been serving on that board, is I don't know. I don't know, and that's not a good enough answer, in my opinion, you know. If that's gonna be my answer for the next 10 years serving on the school board, then I don't need to be on the school board. And that's my interest in this is, okay, let's explore this option and see if it's feasible. And if we don't explore it, then shame on us. But let's at least get the information out there and explore it. And if we decide that it's not in the best interest of Sweetwater, then we don't have to do it. But we're never gonna know until we explore it. And that's just my take on all of this. I have no hidden agenda in it. I just feel like if I'm gonna represent those people in the Sweetwater community as a school board member, then I'm gonna have to do my due diligence in this process.
There's a lot of questions, like you said, and that's why the people that I've talked to, especially people that this concerns people in the first district, not only Sweetwater, but first district, lives outside the city limits. That's a reason why that a lot of people want a referendum on it to see if, and in most cases, we got election coming up. If we can get on it, we got election coming up in June. If we could work fast enough, it could be on a referendum by June, whether to consider this or to do it. So we've got time to put it on a referendum. Brian?
I may be talking in turn here, but this is a complex issue, but to me, it all comes down to two questions. One of them I think everybody's answered is, number one, would the school be better off in the city school system? I think everybody believes on some level, yes, it would. So that question is somewhat answered. The second, and maybe the bigger question is, how much can the city afford it? So, instead of taking all this time trying to figure out all those other things, what would it take to get a price? And it seems like it's wasting time not getting a price, because the price may be, that's not feasible at all, okay, we'll move on. But to tease everybody for months and months, and then come up with a price and go, oh no, forget that, we can't do it, seems kind of strange. What would it take to get a price is my question.
Richard, have you all discussed this in the county board meeting of the price? I heard a price come from somewhere at one point.
We've not set any kind of price, but I will say, I don't want to speak out of turn here, but as far as the price is concerned, timing of the essence. We're about to put another roof on that round building at about $1.5 million, so kind of depends, that's gonna play a factor. We throw $1.5 million roof on that building.
$1.5 million?
I say go ahead and take care of it.
Yeah, go ahead and put that thing on there.
Somebody else does it, it's going to be a difference in the price.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we're probably looking at.
Well, you'll wait to
We
see.
are doing that real soon. That is about to happen.
But to speak to Brian's question, is there a timetable, time frame? Is there additional investigations that need to happen to get that number?
There's not a time frame on our end, but, I mean, depending on if we, I mean, really nothing needs to be done at the high school other than the roof. We've about done everything else in the last few years.
There was a discussion about an appraisal. Has that happened? It has been done? What was that amount?
That may be the number they heard.
That's the number that I'm talking, appraisal. Maybe it was about like 8 or 9 million, wasn't it? It seemed low to me, whatever it was.
It was about six, I think it was 6.2 or something.
But we don't have it still.
Would you be willing to give it away? I heard at one point some of them would give it to Sweetwater. You heard anything? Give it away? Okay, let's move on.
Well, I've got one thing. I mean, I think everything, we're all talking about money and everything, but let's talk about future generations coming up in Sweetwater. You know, I mean, I honestly, from where I stand, I don't care if my taxes go up a little bit, if it's going to ensure the future the education of our future leaders and business people in Sweetwater. So the price of the building or anything like that doesn't need to be the number one determining factor, if you ask me. I think we need to go deeper and see, you know, where our city schools grades are compared to where they could be on through high school with that continuity if we were to take on this this endeavor with K through 12 in school. So, I mean, that's my 2 cents anyway.
To Brian's question, we don't have a date, but we did, both Monroe County and Sweetwater City Board appointed an executive committee to meet formally and begin those next steps. So both of those committees have been appointed to meet and start discussing some of these details. We met with Chuck, I think it was in December, to get some of the details that he just presented to you guys. So the ball is rolling. I wish I had a time frame, just like Mr. Dennis said. I don't really know a date, but the wheels are in motion, and hopefully, if Chuck can pull some of those numbers that he was talking about with the student population, and we can, the executive committee from the county board and the executive committee from the city board, and then take that information and get together and begin negotiations to see, okay, what is a number? Let's throw a number out there and start working off of that. So the wheels are in motion. I don't have an exact date, but I'm like everybody else here. My hope is that can move quicker rather than slower.
Even if you put it to a referendum, people are gonna vote for it. The determining factor, I know what you're saying now, the determining factor though is gonna be price. Period. I mean, so the quicker that can happen, that's the thing.
Okay, we're going to break this off, and thank you for being here. If y'all need to leave, go ahead. And
One quick thing I will add though, the good thing about legal representation is Monroe County's attorney works in the same firm as Chuck. So they have a lot of, you know, they can go from
That's good.
desk to desk, and it's not like, you know, a major fight over
Yeah, that's real good.
They can just say, hey, we need to talk about this. I think that's probably a pretty good situation that you don't have two different attorneys coming from two different places when it comes to making those kind of decisions.
okay, stay in touch. We'll stay in touch and work it out the
Thank you,
best
Rodney.
we can.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Okay, where were we, Jessica? You were getting ready to finish up with the reports, I believe.
Yeah, the multimodal project, these are the parcels that'll be affected. And this is the biggest part of this is gonna be this bridge. So the top is how it is right now. And this is the pedestrian, well, no, it's a vehicular only bridge at this point between A&S Towing. So that's on the far end towards Main Street. And on this end of that photo, closer to you, will be the gas station. And this side of the road is Acme Block and Brick. So does everyone kind of know where we are? Mm-hmm. So the top picture is showing you that there's no place for pedestrians to walk. They kind of squeeze up against that wall. The initial design was going to build a whole bridge, a pedestrian bridge on the outside of this concrete wall so that pedestrians would walk in, and the price tag on that was ridiculous, and there was no good way to move the utilities to be in the right place. So what we asked them to do, since there was, I don't know if y'all realize this, but you can't turn on a bridge. There's a turn lane the whole way down through there. So what we said instead to the engineers was, can't we just have 2 lanes of traffic and then a pedestrian path for them to walk on and not expand the bridge or add an extra pedestrian bridge? So that's what the bottom drawing is. And that's what the intention is going to be. There's a 10-foot multi-use path. You can bike on it. You can walk on it. And then you still have 2 lanes of traffic, 1 lane going each direction. What you lose is that middle turn lane, which again, you don't have to have on a bridge. So that's kind of what they came up with. I thought that was a very reasonable solution.
Can you, I'm sorry, can you just tell us the 5 businesses that we can't talk to?
Mm-hmm.
Because I see 4 names in blue.
John, you might need to correct me if I'm wrong on these. Farmer's Furniture is under White Stores. That's one of the affected parcels. Valley Motors is the lot where Little Drugs sits now. That property owner cannot be talked to. A&S Auto Body and Towing will have a construction easement. The gas station is under Maruti Corporation, and then Ivan Moskowitz estate under Save-A-Lot. And I also think maybe it's Brent Hickey now on Jerry Richardson's lot.
Yeah.
Seems like this still says Jerry Richardson, but I think it's actually Brent Hickey.
It's actually, I think, out of the estate, and it's Moskowitz's son.
Okay.
So we can't talk to the owners of those stores about this easement.
About acquiring their property, even for a temporary construction easement. You can tell them, hey, we're building a sidewalk down through there. You can't say anything about any kind of negotiation or anything that could be interpreted as a negotiation with the property owner. All of that has to be done through TDOT now that we've started the right-of-way phase.
Thank you.
And there's the bridge picture again. Okay,
I do have another question.
have at it.
The, just out of curiosity, where will the turn lane start and
I should have
end?
put that picture in here because it is in. I did have an aerial of that, and for whatever reason, I didn't put it in here. I'm going to try and zoom in on this picture and just see if you can tell a little better. It basically is either side of the bridge. It opens back up into a turn lane. I know you can't really see it that well there, and I honestly don't know how to zoom in on that.
I just know that, you know,
So
the hunters situation, we have
a
we're-
bottleneck a little
yeah.
bit, yeah. And I mean, you're not losing any lane width here. You're only losing that turn lane in the middle. So hopefully that won't really affect traffic all that much, other than there probably will be more pedestrians using that path.
There'll be a transition
Yeah.
somewhere down through there.
There is. It opens back up on either side of the bridge. So even before you get to Cullum Street, it opens back up to that middle lane, which is the very first street on the north end of the bridge. And then on the south end of the bridge, by the time you make it to Acme's turn in, where you can actually turn in, there's a turn lane back again for that too. So we were very conscious about saying we want to make sure every business has a place where they can still turn in. So, and that is what the traffic engineers came up with. So hopefully it's a good plan. And I probably have a better picture in my office, Sam. And I can forward you Cannon's file. So one of the other things.
Could I just, at the utility board today, Eric informed us that the state had informed him that this project would probably be delayed by a year.
I mean, I wasn't betting on it happening before
Be
next
5
spring
years.
anyway. Yeah, I mean, they were being very optimistic.
5 or 10.
Did they say which year?
No, next, like 26.
Okay, I figure it'll be spring of 26.
Well, because they had originally contacted him and they'd been doing the utility stuff in the spring of this year. But he
Well-
said between our last meeting and this one today, they were advised it'd be a year out.
We had to get a contract extension on this. Part of it was COVID, part of it was TDOT had different personnel changes, and just like the other grant we did, but they gave us a contract extension on this, I think, through December of 2026. So I'm hoping it actually lets for construction in spring of 2026, so we don't have to extend that contract again. But it's been extended 2 more years, so. Y'all, to
All the
build a
money is
sidewalk.
going to Upper East Tennessee right now for construction with all that damage. Hurricane up there. That's what I'm hearing.
I can believe that. Okay, so something else on multimodal design I wanted to get your all's thoughts and feedback on. Crosswalks. We have the opportunity to design crosswalks a little bit. So the crosswalks that this would actually affect are not actually inside the historic district. They are Cullum Street and Bird Street. I think those are the only 2 affected. It's possible it could affect the intersection at Monroe and Main, which technically is the historic zoning district ends at the corner before that. Now, as a courtesy, I'm sure Sam would agree, we should probably just tell historic zoning about it and kind of get their feedback on it. Do we want to think, and the reason I'm asking this is because we are not doing a giant pedestrian bridge. We have funding for $1.25 million on this grant. It's probably not going to come in that high, so we have a little more money for amenities, and this is only a 5% match grant. So this is one I don't want to leave a penny on the table for, because most TDOT grants are a 20% match. This match is only 5%. So if we were ever thinking we might want to gussy up our crosswalks, and we might want to start with Bird Street and Cullum and do some designs in it or some art inside the crosswalk, this would be the time to do it, because we only have to pay 5%. This is a thermal, y'all know I'm not really good at this stuff. It's like a thermal something or other that you put on the ground, and it's gonna last a long time. But you can do all these different designs. It's a paint, basically. It's not, so even how we've talked about doing permeable pavers, even in the Circle Park project, you can see this design right there that looks like a brick pattern. It looks like permeable pavers, but it's actually a thermo paint. So I think this would be especially good like in front of Broad Street School, someplace where you have a kid on a crosswalk somewhere that you need a little more attention drawn to it. And maybe downtown we want to go with like a black and white theme or a brick kind of pattern or something a little less circusy. But like I wanted to get your feedback on it. Do you want me to pursue this and find out about it? It would probably cost about $4,000 for each crosswalk we did, and we've got 2 crosswalks on this project. So even if we did both of them, we'd probably still have a little extra money left to extend some more decorative lighting, to add some more benches along the walking area. So we have some other money for pedestrian improvements since we're not having to build a whole pedestrian bridge. But any thoughts on this? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you want to see some different options or see where it's been put down somewhere
Why not utilize the brick on your sidewalk or your crosswalks?
like that?
Yeah, because
I think that
it's got that
like
old
that
timey look to it.
I think it would feel really good downtown to have some kind of pattern in there. I would want it to be cohesive. So, however we're doing it downtown, we'd want it to kind of look
I
the
don't
same.
think we need any of them psychedelics over there.
You don't like the psychedelics?
No.
Okay. So you're not a hippie.
Well, I'm just trying to follow the lead Sam's putting out.
We could recreate the Beatles
We got to
picture
answer
in
the
Charleston.
9 other people, don't we, John?
But also, this is something to keep in mind for other crosswalks. I do think it definitely gets your attention and is going to be very safe for pedestrians when they see that kind of crosswalk.
Put it on Monday's agenda.
Monday.
Yeah.
Okay. And then just wanted to give you an update. I think I emailed this to you all, but we did do a website update to add our new travel guide on there. We've been working with AB Studios, who did the short rom-com film in downtown Sweetwater last fall, and we had their movie premiere last week. It's called Falling for Sweetwater. This is not just a Valentine's promotion. We are going to leave this up on our website, but you can go there. You can watch the short film. It is really short. It's only 7 minutes long, y'all. But the short film, we also have a YouTube ad going right now. We spent about $500 on YouTube to promote that ad. We're trying to drive traffic to downtown Sweetwater for Valentine's Day because it falls on a Friday this year, and we have this movie coming out, so it was kind of the perfect tie-in. So create your own rom-com in downtown Sweetwater. We will get analytics on our website about this. We will get placer data to see how many people actually show up in downtown Sweetwater on Valentine's Day compared to years prior. So we should have some good data to give you by the time Haley does her tourism update in a couple of months. But we launched this travel guide and the campaign to advertise for it last Thursday. We've already had 5,400 views on the Facebook ad, which is our highest Facebook views ever on anything. I don't know why they would want to watch that instead of city board meetings. I would think those would be top of the line, but so. Homecoming bridge assessment is next. Sorry,
Okay.
I had this for the next
While you've got
screen,
that pulled up, why don't we just skip down to that?
but- Okay, so this is the redesign of Circle Park. A couple of workshops ago, we had a discussion about some of the pedestrian safety areas, particularly those up close to Highway 11. So Joanna, Sam, Jim, I think you all were kind of the key players in that discussion. This is the new redesign.
So basically, if you remember, where the sidewalk kind of follows Highway 11, it was more projected toward the corner to create connectivity from point to point. And the discussion was, instead of sending the pedestrians out closer to the road, at least at this particular point, redirect them straight across. And what Daniel did is basically the bulb that's there, he increased the green space from Highway 11 over to the sidewalk and brought it back in approximately 10 to 12 feet away from the edge. I think what he had mentioned is we'll lose one parking stall to do so, but in doing so, it'll get a straight crossing and get the pedestrians away from 11, and really will focus them to going over to where we already have an existing crosswalk. And at least if they're crossing here, they're going way out of their way to do so. At least with this particular design, we've given them a more direct versus a angled approach. So hopefully it kind of meets all the points of discussion. But as always, everything's up for discussion. Thoughts, guys?
Looks good to me. Put that on the agenda, vote on it.
Thank you. Oh, it was, as everything should be, the culmination and the end product was a process of a very good discussion and very good points. And that's why we sit in these seats. So
This will pretty well solve that problem that we.
yeah, it definitely, well, like I was saying, we've done everything we could to redirect the pedestrian away from that corner and take them to a corner where they have a crosswalk versus giving them the option to dart across.
Okay. While you're talking, Sam, give us an update on the Duck Park Bridge.
So-
We've been discussed that in the workshop, and you've been gathering some information.
Yes, obviously the holidays happened and we got a little bit behind, but from the, let me roll this up and get it. Thank you.
Yeah.
At our last discussion, we kind of went through the talking points that MBI structural engineer had made in the report. Basically, I think it was the consensus of the board to move forward with those repairs. But to get those repairs done and bid out, we would need construction documents and additional details to do so. I called Zach, who had done the report, and asked him to give us a proposal for the additional services as development of these details. And he sent us a additional services agreement that would coincide with the report. For an additional $4,000, they can basically detail all of the correction points that were inside their report.
Okay, so they're gonna give us a detailed report of all the things that they think need to be done to the bridge.
Basically, everything that they had listed as needing repair, they would take that line item and create a detail for that and how to repair it. And then we could take that construction document, we could send that out to bid, as well as, you know.
I like it. I'm
Okay,
very much
put-
on board.
I think right this second, there is still about $9,000 left in the downtown improvements line item. If we wanna say we can take the bridge I mean, technically that is downtown.
Sure.
I mean,
Put it on the agenda.
Yeah.
Monday
Thank you,
night.
Sam.
Okay.
So-
We've got some bids to open on the Biggs House project. Bids received on masonry work only and 2 for roofing work. We'll open those bids. Jessica, you got them?
yes, okay, so they were open today at 2 p.m. in front of the actual bidders. Some of them were here. We got a bid from Mighty Dog Roofing for $44,126. The masonry work, the only bid we received on it was from,
Jason Graves.
Jason Graves, but he has a DBA name too. Jason Graves, $32,000 for the masonry work. And then Ultimate Roofing provided a roofing only bid for $55,038.74. Just so you all know, we did budget $50,000 this year to be used towards the Biggs home renovation, but that was contingent on us receiving grant funding for that. We have not received any grant funding for that. So if we do want to move forward with any part of any of these bids, we probably need to vote on it and put that on Monday's agenda. The other thing is we met with a member of East Tennessee Development District a couple weeks ago. She came down and toured the facility with John and myself. She feels like if we would go ahead and do the paint, take the paint off the brick, and then submit it for the National Historic Registry, we would have a good chance at getting a 50-50 match grant through the state of Tennessee for their historic building preservation. So one of the thoughts I had was if we go ahead, if Sam thinks that the masonry work is the most pressing issue, if we went ahead and did the masonry work this year and then attempted to apply for grant funding for the roofing part of it, maybe we'd have a little better luck. We will continue applying for the federal grant, but it's just very competitive, and it's against every other main street in the nation. So it is a $50,000 grant, and there's no match on it. So it would be great if we could get it, and we get to apply for it every quarter. So we will continue to submit that application in the meantime, but it just may take a while before we ever get that grant because it's very competitive. So that kind of tells you where we are on it.
And your masonry bid included taking all the paint off?
What will, if they'd have to take it off, sandblast it, or how would they do that?
What we would use,
Carefully.
what we would use is a historic preservation type of removal. Basically, it's going to have to be treated and removed. It's not going to be 100%, but it will at least get it back to, because at the end of the day, the paint's going to have to be removed so they can even do the proper work from the joint. But we have a couple of products that's been used in the past and is actually recommended from the National Register to my brain just shut down. I told you I was off my game tonight. But from the National Historic Register, they give products to use for this. And in talking with the mason about this, he did list it in his bid that the paint would be removed to do the work. So that was in their price to do so.
Is that the $32,000 bid?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, let's put it on the agenda for vote on it Monday night. Okay. Short and sweet department head reports.
Everything's going good. That's my boy right there.
That's too short, John. You put a little bit of.
We got our hose in that we got for the grant. We've been working on getting that put on the truck and getting ready for ISO. They're coming.
You know when they're coming?
They hit North Monroe last week, so I would assume we are.
Oh,
Will-
what?
Will they give any consideration to the fact that we've ordered a new truck?
No.
Okay.
Do you plan on shaving for that
I
meeting?
probably won't, because it usually don't go good.
I mean, you look very manly, but you might want to do something.
Yeah, I'm gonna shave.
Okay.
I had problems at the house this morning.
But we have added a truck, so the ladder truck.
Since they were here last.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
We've made some great
There's great things have happened since the last time.
Well, I knew they counted such things. I didn't know if they give you credit for intending to.
Have we ordered our new truck? It's on order? Okay. Eddie,
Okay, on my part, first of all, the crosswalks downtown, the paintings down there, I like the brick. I know it really matter what I like. I like the brick. I like going through Lenore City and seeing the brick down there. I would like on Sterrett Street and Broad Street for the schools it to be considered to make one of those creative and bright colors, because I think the kids would be drawn to it more so than they are the incorporated just regular stripes. That's my quick one. Kevin's doing our department, facts and stuff.
So basically, I just got kind of 3 months, our year-end numbers from our department. From October 1st till December 31st, we had 1,842 calls for service. So that's quite a bit in a 3-month stretch. We made 91 arrests out of those. 15 were domestic violence. One of those domestic violence is one of the things we brought up earlier about our entry team, the barricaded subject. So basically that's just so we can get our guys trained. They train together. They know what each other's going to be doing. They know how they're going to be doing it. And luckily we were able to handle that situation, get that guy into custody. We conducted 2 search warrants. One on Monroe Street at a problem house that everybody knows about. One on Oakland Road, and 11 people were arrested out of those 2. We've taken approximately 100 grams of methamphetamine off the street, 30 grams of fentanyl off the street. October, we had a homicide on Powell Avenue. Suspect
Kevin.
And again, Mayor, that's, Kevin, he's our assistant chief, he does a great job with that, plus he's gonna be a dad at 43.
All right.
Little girl. Yeah, I hate to leave that part out.
Old man.
John, take her away.
Old man. Old man still got it.
I don't think I can top that one. Be a new dad at 45.
All right, John Campbell.
Everything's going smooth in the planning department. You mentioned Dollar General, Kevin mentioned the arson there. The plans are to demolish that structure. They're gonna take that down to the concrete slab. That's the plan. That's the plan to build back, yeah. The Dollar General? Those are the plans. Now, I'm not seeing. Well, depending on, I've not seen the plans, but the phone calls from the contractors, their intentions were to take it down, steel and all, and leave the concrete slab and build back. But now, that plan may have changed. That's been about a week ago when I spoke to them on the phone. To me, the outside, the exterior of the structure still looks like it's in good shape. Now, I've not been inside there to look at the steel, what it looks like. But, I thought it was odd that they would take the steel down. I thought maybe they would leave the exterior and the steel up and just kind of gut it out. But when I spoke to them on the phone, the plans were to take it down and build back. So, but we'll see on that one. I did speak to, finally got a call back from, or an email back from KFC. They had told us last year that it would be January of 25 when they break ground. But now they're saying it's going to be closer to late 25, so the end of this year, start breaking ground and moving dirt, and hopefully be completed, have that done by mid-26. So hopefully at some point this year in 2025, we'll see dirt moving on KFC. If not, they're going to run me out of town. Yeah, I get that question a lot. That's probably the biggest question. But anyway. Otherwise, building permits still fairly slow on new home construction, other than mobile homes, double wides are still moving, get permits on those weekly. As far as, the development behind Burger King, we're still waiting on a site plan there. The developers have kind of recommitted to that project. They've been in contact with us about our subdivision regulations and our site plan requirements, so hopefully we'll see a plan on that property pretty soon, to the planning commission. A lot of subdivision requests. I think the planning commission approved 3 or 4 just in last month's meeting. There's also a potential annexation request coming up off of Edgewood Drive. So if you're going out Old 68 where Edgewood forks off, instead of going on up Pettigo Ridge, you stay left on Edgewood, and it's the property that fronts Edgewood beyond that little church right there. So it's actually part of that old, down in the bottom.
Lumber company used to be there.
Yes, that's right. So they want to subdivide off about 7 parcels or 7 lots there and have those annexed into the city. So they've submitted a plat for review. And I told them that if they want to request annexation, they would have to go before the planning commission and the city council. So they're aware of that process, and they're kind of working through that right now to get their ducks in a row. So potentially, 7 more lots annexed into the city, which is a good thing. They talked to SUB about accessing sewer there. They've checked all those boxes. So that's pretty much all I've got. Everything else seems to be running pretty smooth.
Okay. David.
Everything's going good. I mean, like Jessica said, the gates have really helped. Appreciate the folks to get them. All of our snow plowing equipment is repaired back up to par. Got full bin of salt. We're ready for another storm if it happens. It's fun. We're working on the maintenance man, the new maintenance man, Richard, has got a plan drawn up for a new desk or a new podium. We're working on a shop for him. That's what we're going to use our building material money for this year. So. And other than that, leaf season is wrapping up. It's almost over. The brush, the demolition, everything's caught up. Everything is great. We're just waiting on some warm weather so we can continue a lot of projects when we get done.
Thank you for a good job y'all did during the snow. Yeah, heard a lot of,
saying that Sweetwater streets were way better than anybody else.
yeah,
We work hard on it.
yeah. Y'all did good. Thank you. Last but not least, we got Sean.
Quick. Not really a whole lot going on right now. We're in our slow season, you know, so, of course, we got soccer sign-ups. I think they'll probably start playing or practicing here, in about a month or so. During the off-season, AYSO had put some money in to have some work done in the soccer fields. Like in front of the soccer goals where the goalies get in there and dig trenches. They had all that filled back in and sodded, and so they're pretty proud of that. Last week we got moved into our new building. Got just a few
How's that working?
Got just a few little odds and ends we've got to get moved over, and then we talked to David about building a ramp so we can get our mowers in the building. So when next time they do a concrete pour, they're going to take care of that. And
You changed out the Valentine lights.
yeah, we got all we're un-Christmased, and now we're Valentine'd up, and all except for the bubble. We don't have the love bubble.
Stop calling it that.
And tomorrow we're moving Landon out of his closet, and we're gonna move him across the street into his new office.
Great job, Brandon.
By himself, he won't know what to do over there by himself.
He's gonna love it.
I bet he
We are
is
so loud in this
ecstatic.
building. He is gonna be so happy.
Yeah, I bet he's ecstatic.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Tanya, you got a report for us?
We're coming out of the slow season and heading back into the busy season at the library. We will be closed, we're not sure yet when. First couple of days of training and transition, we are changing our circulation software over. So once we have dates, we'll get those published so that everybody knows we're gonna be closed for that. And my happy point for the weekend, I've been digging for this, I sort of knew that the library was started in 1905, but then I read some stuff that maybe was suggesting that it started earlier than that. So my happy point today is I finally found where it says Sweetwater Public Library was organized February 11th, 1905. So we will very quickly be celebrating 120 years.
Wow, okay. I remember when it was in the carriage house up there. Everybody remember that?
They originally started out in a room in the college that then became TMI.
Okay. All right. All minds clear. Anything else to come up? Thank you, department heads. Anything else from the commission? Thank you, and we are adjourned.
I'm glad you finally showed up.